Esperanza, the beginning. Mr. Tomasso Aldini became the most successful surgeon in Le Centre Hospitalier de Bayeux in Normandy, France, in 1946. He had been born to a well-known family in Italy. Considered medical royalty, he was wealthy, highly esteemed, amazingly talented and very reserved. He stood in the surgical wing preparing for his next case. Tall, upright, square shoulders, dark hair, impossibly dark eyes, and a strong cleft chin made him a striking picture in an otherwise sterile environment. He stood watching the buzz of activity on the floor. Nothing really registered except one nurse. The petite yet dynamic Esperanza Catherine Rose Balders. Nurse Esperanza Catherine Rose Balders came to Normandy from Castile, Spain, where her father owned a large sheep ranch. He also bred the most highly prized Burgalese pointer dogs in the Kingdom of Castile. While the Balders family were not wealthy, they were comfortable financially. Esperanza was educated at the finest Catholic girls' schools where she excelled. She felt that coming to Normandy to work at the Bayeux would be good for her medical training and her faith. She very much enjoyed working on the surgical floor. She came to be in demand, helping the doctors, other nurses and the patients. Most people gravitated towards her energy and enthusiasm and her unique appearance. Her beautiful red hair highlighted her hazel eyes, and lovely smile. Mr. Aldini could not take his eyes off of her. Her petite stature radiated joy. Recently Tomasso Aldini had not been a happy man. He had his family name, recently returned to his faith, and became a popular surgeon in post-WW2 France. The Bayeux had been a place of healing since 1644. Tomasso wanted to work where he could do the most good. Yet he'd felt the weight of the family name, and their secrets around him at all times. Everyone knew the public face of the Aldini and Galvani family. They knew the advances in medicine and science made by Giovanni Aldini and Luigi Galvani. However, they did not know of those who used their surgical skill to line their pockets with money by making promises they could not keep. His own father, before he was forced to retire, began a surgery where he attempted, and largely failed, to repair defects his wealthy patients felt were embarrassing. Facial tics, skin problems, scars, birthmarks, even attempting to cure baldness. He gave fair warning that the surgery was not guaranteed to be effective, but the patients had been desperate or vain enough to go through with the surgery. Tomasso had no idea how disastrous some of these surgeries were until he found his father's medical case files. Though he was not the only family member to engage in less than ethical practices to hold on to the family wealth. The famed Count Antonio Aldini failed to be a paragon of virtue in his day. The worst moment in his entire experience as a surgeon came the day he found himself face to face with one of his father's former patients. The nurse brought her to Mr. Aldini's consulting rooms. While taking the patient's case history, he learned that this woman was one of his father's very last patients. Hoping that the son could correct the damage done by the father, this gentle soul lifted her veil to reveal a horrible scar down the side of her face from a botched surgical procedure to remove a birthmark from her face. Tomasso hurriedly asked the nurse in the room to look after the patient while he went to find two of his colleagues. A swirl of emotion hit him. Anger, revulsion, most of all he felt great sorrow for what this woman had suffered. He scoured the hospital for two colleagues, both of whom were expert in treating battle scars during the war. Maybe they could help her. He did not train in this area of surgery, and he felt a conflict in operating to repair an egregious error by his own father. After his shift he would need to speak to his priest, a man he considered more than just a spiritual advisor but a friend. Father Jerome was his own age, intelligent, thoughtful and didn't judge Tomasso based on his last name. While searching for his colleagues Mr. Aldini literally ran into Nurse Balders. Apologizing profusely, he said that he was searching for M. Simenon and M. Her, E. Esperanza pointed him in the right direction. He thanked her, then in a bit of a clumsy way asked her to meet him at Columbus Cafe for a coffee at 6 o'clock in the evening to make up for nearly running her over in the corridor. She smiled broadly, blushing slightly. She answered that she would like to meet for a coffee, but it would have to be at 6:30 instead because she must be at church until 6 o'clock. They fixed the time and parted in different directions. Father Jerome met Tomasso Aldini at the church rectory instead of the church as Father Gabriel was hearing confession. They would be uninterrupted in the rectory garden. Father Jerome could see that his friend was deeple.
Esperanza, the Beijing, Mr. Tomasso Andy became the most successful surgeon in the Centre Hospital the Bayes in Normandy, France, in 1946. He had been born to a well-known family in Italy. Considered medical royally, he was wealthy, highly esteemed, amazingly talented and very research. He stood in the surgical wing preparing for his next case. Tan, upright, square shoulder, dark hair, impossibly dark eyes, and a strong collection made him a striking picture in an authoritarian environment. He stood watching the bull of activity on the floor. Nothing really registered except one news. The petite is dynamic Esperanza Catherine Rose Bader. News Esperanza Catherine Rose Bader came to Normandy from Castile, Spain, with her father out and a large shipment. He also bred the most highly prized Bergalet Pointer dog in the kingdom of Castile. While the Bader family were not wealthy, they were comfortable financially. Esperanza was educated at the finest Catholic girls' school where she excelled. She felt that coming to Normandy to work at the Bayes would be good for her medical training and her fight. She very much enjoyed working on the surgical floor. She came to be in demand, helping the doctor, author nurses and the patient. Most people gravitate toward her energy and enthusiasm and her unkicked appearance. Her beautiful red hair highlight her hazel eyes and lovely smile. Mr. Andy could not take his eyes off of her. Her petite stature radiated joy. Recently Tomasso Andy had not been a happy man. He had his family name, recently returned to his fight, and become a popular surgeon in VW France. The Bayes had been a place of healing since 1644. Tomasso wanted to work with he cao do the most good. It had felt the way of the family name, and they set around him at on time. Everyone knew the public face of the Andy and Galvani family. They knew the advancer in medicine and science must be Giovanni Andy and Luigi Galvani. However, they did not know of those VW who set their surgical skill to line their pocket with money be making promise they could not keep. His father, before he was forced to retire, began a surgery with he attempted, and largely failed, to repair defect his wealthy patient fell with embarrass. Fasciotic, skin problem, sa, birth, event attempting to Cubanet. He gave a warning that the surgery was not guaranteed to be effective, but the patient had been dead to start of and now to go through with the surgery. Tomasso had no idea how disastrous some of the surgery were until he found his father's medical case filed. Though he was not the only family member to engage in lethal ethical practices to hold on to the family well. The famous Count Antonio Andy failed to be a paragon of virtue in his day. There was moment in his anti-experience as a surgeon came the day he found himself face to face with one of his father's former patients. The news brought her to Mr. Andy's consult room. While taking the patient's case history, he learned that this woman was one of his father's very last patients. Hoping that the song cao correct the dama don't be the father, this gentle sound lại fed her way to reveal a horrific star down the side of her face from a budget surgical procedure to remove a birth from her face. Tomasso hurried and asked the nurse in the room to look after the patient while he went to fight two of his colleagues. A swell of emotion hit him. Anger, revulsion, most of all he felt great sorrow for what this woman had suffered. He scoured the hospital for two colleagues. Both of whom were experts in treating battle stars during the war. Maybe they could help her. He did not train in this area of surgery, and he felt a conflict in offering to repair an egregious error by his father. After he ship he wanted to speak to his priest, among he consai more than just a spiritual advisor book a friend. Father Jerome was his RA, intellect, thoughtful and intelligent Tomasso based on his last name. While searching for his colleague Mr. Andy literally ran into newspaper. Apologizing profusely, he said that he was searching for M. Simenon and M. Her, E. Esperanza pointed him in the right direction. He then get her then in a bit of a clumsy way asked her to meet him at Columbus Cafe for a coffee at 6 giờ in the evening to make up for nearly running her over in the corridor. She smiled broadly, blushing slightly. She answered that she would like to meet for a coffee, but it was have to be at 6 giờ 30 phút instead because she must be at chút until 6 giờ. They phải set the time and practice in different directions. Father Jerome met Tomasso Andy at the church rector instead of the church as Father Gabriel was hearing confessing. They will be united in the rector garden. Father Jerome could see that his friend was dispelled.